extent of his losses, but he was convinced that anything else stolen would also resemble an egg in some way. Besides selling regular antiques, the store also dealt in extremely rare magical objects. Had the thieves hoped that in their odd combination of loot they would find the greatest treasure of all, something incredibly ancient, something that could control the entire world's destiny? For millennia, humans and monsters had been searching for it in China. It was bad news that the hunt had now shifted overseas to places like San Francisco. Even worse, the name of his former teacher, Mrs. Li, was on the customer list the thieves had examined. He cursed himself for not deleting all records linking her to the store. She had regularly bought enchanted items from his uncle, the former owner, and even though none of them were what the thieves were seeking, they might break into her house to see what else she had in her collection. Since inheriting his uncle's shop and returning to the city, Mr. Hu had been reluctant to visit her. Mrs. Li had been a surrogate mother as well as mentor, and she had not wanted him to leave to fight in his clan's war. She had insisted that his apprenticeship to her outweighed any obligation of blood. But to her great disappointment, Mr. Hu had argued that his honor demanded he go. As a result, they had not parted on the best of terms. He hoped his fears were misplaced. She had protected her home with such potent magic that thieves would find it hard to disturb her. But even so, he ought to tell her to be alert. He tried to call her now, simultaneously feeling anxious and yet looking forward to hearing her dry voice again. But her regular telephone was busy, and the customer list had no cell phone number for her. So a half-hour later, after returning everything to the vault and setting even more powerful protective wards, he tried again, but still got a busy signal. He decided then that she must be using her telephone line to connect a computer to the internet. He would need to warn her in person. Chapter 1. It isn't every day you meet a tiger, and certainly not a tiger in a suit and tie, and definitely not one who knows your first name. The tiger was the last thing Tom Lee expected as he stumbled up the steps to his grandmother's home. It was a grand old house in the inner Richmond of San Francisco. Gingerbread shingles covered its sides like scales, and pigeons cooed under its ornate window eaves. It seemed to have cast some magical spell that protected it and its neighbors from being replaced by the cheap, ugly apartment houses that had swallowed up the rest of the city. However, today Tom didn't want to admire it. As he hurried up the steps, he just wanted to hide inside, away from all the people staring at the big bruise surrounding one eye and the torn sleeve of his blue shirt. At the park, Jack, an 8th grader, had called Tom's grandmother a weirdo, which everyone in the neighborhood did because of the way she decorated her house. It was full of magical charms, strange designs on paper, wood, and stone, and words written in a ghostly script. Hanging everywhere were mirrors with trigrams, sets of 3 lines, either solid or with a gap in the middle, from an ancient book called the Book of Changes. They made up patterns that could tell the future and had magical powers. And incense was always burning before bizarre statues. When she walked down the street to do her shopping, their non-Chinese neighbors turned and whispered to one another. The Chinese in the area treated her as if she were invisible, and the Chinese shopkeepers were afraid to say a word to her and always waited on her first, as if they were in a hurry to get her out of their shops. Not that she cared. She was proud of working magic, and was even teaching Tom the rudiments of what she called the lore. Unfortunately for Tom, the neighborhood's attitude had filtered down to the children, who stuck Tom with the same label, weirdo. Bullies, Chinese or not, loved to pick on anyone different, and they had made Tom their favorite target. He couldn't ignore an insult slung at his grandmother, who had taken care of him ever since he was a baby. His archaeologist parents had disappeared somewhere in Malaysia when he was only a year old. Everyone, including Tom and his grandmother, assumed they were dead.